The mine that became a deadly trap for the Russians, new booking rules, and did Israel and Hamas actually make peace? These are a few of the topics I'll cover in detail today, but that's not all. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch the broadcast. Be sure to leave comments about what you see. Now, a preview of the main stories, and then we'll get started right away. Explosions on the coast and total darkness in Chornomorsk. My son ran in and shouted, "Mom, Mom," and then an explosion. And that's what happened. How the enemy attacked Odesa region with drones, and were there any casualties? Drone terror in Kherson does not stop. During the day, the Russians struck a water utility vehicle. The driver was killed. 3 of his colleagues were taken to the hospital. All of them are in serious condition. 2 more city residents were hospitalized after the morning drone attack. They were also in the car at the time of the attack. The occupiers also struck 2 police cars with an FPV drone. At the scene of the incident, 4 law enforcement officers and 2 civilians were injured. Russian war criminals dropped 3 high-explosive aerial bombs on Slovyansk. It is known that at least 7 people have been injured. 1 person is in serious condition. Private houses and apartment buildings have been damaged. A Russian drone struck a civilian car in the Mykolaiv community in the Sumy region. A 27-year-old man. The girl was hospitalized with blast injuries. Swarms of drones are terrorizing Sumy and Bilopilia. In the regional center, the roof of an apartment building was pierced, a homestead was destroyed, and the city of Bilopilia has been completely left without power as a result of strikes on energy facilities. Due to the shelling, train routes passing through the Sumy region have been changed. A number of trains are departing and arriving several hours late. The occupiers shelled Derhachi with rocket artillery. This is already in the Kharkiv region. An elderly city resident was hospitalized with blast injuries. Houses, cars, and an electric train were destroyed. There are also reports of livestock deaths. In the Borivska community, aerial bombs damaged an agricultural enterprise and equipment. The security guard suffered an acute stress reaction. The Russians struck the center of Kushuhum in Zaporizhzhia with the Uragan multiple rocket launcher system. This settlement is 15 kilometers from the front line. The moment of the shelling was captured by a surveillance camera. In these chilling frames, you can see explosions and flashes continuing without pause. In less than a minute of the attack, cluster munitions mutilated 45 private houses, damaged a gas pipeline and power lines. As a result of the shelling, 1 person was injured. The municipal enterprise was also destroyed.
Vehicles, cars, specifically while taking out collected garbage. There was a sewage truck, a tractor, a bobcat, all new equipment we used to serve all the local residents and the entire territory of the Kushuhum community. Neklinovsky was also hit, and further down there were also some FBR drones. Molnia. These are huge drones that destroyed our house of culture in Neklinovsky. There was a hole in the roof.
More than 30,000 subscribers remain without electricity. In the Odesa region in particular, the entire city of Chornomorsk was forced to switch to generators. This is the result of a massive drone attack. At night, the enemy targeted energy facilities and port infrastructure. A gas station and residential buildings were also hit. Serhiy Osadchuk will tell us more about the consequences.
We are now in the suburbs of Odesa. This private sector suffered from attacks by the Russians, who once again targeted critical infrastructure last night. Using a dozen attack drones, the enemy aimed at substations but instead hit private homes. A Shahed drone hit this street. 2 homes burned down completely. People managed to save themselves because they ran to the shelter.
One Shahed came, it was hanging on the wire over there. The lights went out. I went around the house to look and the glass had blown out. So the neighbor calls and we always run to the bomb shelter. We run with the little one. She calls and says, "Aunt Zhenya, take her." I say, "We're at home." "What? Home? Run, another one flying soon." Everything burned down, even the neighbor's house. It wasn't just ours, but the one next to us too. In short, everything, just as it was. That's how it all happened. It exploded. And we ran.
The neighbor, Mrs. Yevgenia, pulls an injured dog out from under the rubble. Its legs were cut by shrapnel. The animal can't move on its own. There isn't a single intact window left in Mrs. Irina's house. This is already the 4th attack the family has endured, and fortunately they survived. The woman says this time was the scariest.
My son ran in and shouted, "Mom, Mom!" And he had just reached the room. We were there with my little daughter. She's 3 years old, and he ran in, "Mom, Mom!" And then the explosion. And that's what happened. My daughter was frightened. Of course, she's still so little. And even we, as adults, if we're scared, just imagine how the children feel. There are no windows. The ceilings have collapsed. All the windows were blown out and broken. The roof over there was blown off. The beams themselves, the beams are damaged, and the wall was also hit by the Shaheds. Even the shrapnel. You can see it there in the fence. There's nothing left. You can see it for yourself.
In addition to private houses, a gas station and a transportation company were damaged by the explosions. The largest fire broke out on the territory of the port facility, where containers with household goods were stored. Here, rescuers even had to deploy a firefighting robot.
There was a very high fire load, and it was difficult for the rescuers to reach the source of the fire in some places. In total, more than 80 firefighters and 4 volunteers took part in eliminating the consequences of the enemy attack. At the moment, we know of 5 people who were injured.
Due to the night attack, power was lost not only in several villages in the suburbs of Odesa. The city of Chornomorsk was left without electricity again. Emergency crews have already started working to replace the power lines damaged by the explosions. The power is promised to be restored by 8 o'clock in the evening. For now, critical infrastructure is being powered by generators. Serhiy Osadchuk, Serhiy Holinyuk, Odesa region, TSN 1+1.
Ukraine will defend its energy sector under Russian attacks, which have become more frequent, even though there are not enough air defense systems. Volodymyr Zelenskyy spoke about this during a conversation with journalists the day before. As for enemy strikes on gas infrastructure, Kyiv has several scenarios to neutralize these attacks. The head of state also said that strikes deep inside Russia, targeting military and energy facilities, are carried out only with domestic weapons, since there are not many Western ones available. He also confirmed that in the past week, Neptune and Flamingo missiles were used. As for the powerful American Tomahawk missiles, Ukraine has not received a refusal from the U.S. president regarding the prospect of purchasing these cruise missiles. Fires at gas and oil facilities in Russia. In the Volgograd region, a fire broke out near the Korobkovsky gas processing plant. The glow was captured on video by local residents. The enemy's Ministry of Defense reported that there were drones over this region during the night. The governor of the Volgograd region confirmed that there was a fire at fuel and energy facilities. The Korobkovsky gas processing plant is the largest enterprise in the southern federal district of Russia. A fire was also recorded in the area of the Yefimovka oil pumping station. These fires were detected by the satellite fire monitoring system, and by the afternoon it was already reported that drones had struck an oil depot in the Rostov region. At first, eyewitnesses posted photos and videos of the drone's arrival in the Neklinovsky district of the Rostov region online, and later local officials reported that 3 drones had been shot down. As a result of the explosion, windows were blown out and cars were damaged in several houses in the village of Matveyev Kurgan. We are waiting for official confirmation of the strikes from our authorities.
Oh, looks like it hit the oil depot,
Helping those who can't manage on their own. Evacuating people with disabilities or those who are bedridden from under fire is one of the toughest challenges for evacuation teams. The humanitarian mission Proliska sets out on such trips almost every day. In the past 3 months, nearly 1,000 people with limited mobility have been evacuated from frontline communities. The vast majority require medical supervision. Anastasia Nevirna has witnessed all the difficulties and dangers of evacuation routes.
An ambulance with an evacuation sign drives through the streets of the Pokrovska community, passing by destroyed houses and the shattered center of the village. They're in a hurry because a request for evacuation was made by a woman living alone. She has serious health problems. The medics, accompanied by the White Angel police unit, drive up to her yard. They can't get anyone to answer the door. A dog desperately guards the entrance to the yard, trying to protect its owner. When they finally enter the house, they see that the woman can barely walk on her own. While the medics examine her, the police officers and volunteers help pack her things.
Tell me what you need, I'll get it. I'll put your phone in the bag.
Ms. Nadia is 72. She says she wanted to stay at home until the very end, but now the explosions nearby never stop, so she asked for help.
I stand alone in the house. It's scary.
Ms. Nadia is taking almost nothing with her, just her documents and medical records. They barely managed to find her jacket and scarf.
There's a brand new one over there, a bright blue one, right underneath. Oh, look.
Let me see.
This one?
Ms. Nadia is carried on a stretcher to the evacuation vehicle. She leaves with the hope of returning while the crew, despite the danger, moves on. Another patient is waiting for them.
It's a bit scary, but honestly, we're used to it. We need to act quickly and keep an eye on the security situation. We have to constantly stay in touch with the military and the police.
Mr. Terrace waits in a dark corridor. He can barely walk, so they transport him to the car in a special chair. Already in the ambulance, the man shares. He sent his family away long ago, and now he no longer has the strength to stay in his home himself.
Well, where else could I go? My daughter is 14 years old. She stayed here until the very end. There was shooting, explosions. She was shaking all over. Well,
In addition, he needs urgent surgery, which they promised to perform at his son's place in the Kyiv region.
right now I'm very worried, first of all, about my hernia. My whole abdomen, the internal stitches have completely come apart, and they can't do the surgery because my lungs don't let air through very well.
And another crew is awaited by a man who has been bedridden for 8 years. He is 93. His daughter helps him, but she's so worried she can barely say a few words.
I won't say anything, no.
They tell the Proliska crew that they can no longer stay in Pokrovsk.
Give me your hands. Give me your hands. To me. Come to me. Come on.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come to me, everything's fine.
Thanks to the benefactors of the Proliska humanitarian mission, 3 people got a chance at a safer life today.
This is one of the most difficult evacuations we've had. People submit applications to the hotline. They can also apply through their relatives or social workers. There is always a risk for our workers.
For such evacuations, ambulances are specially involved and medical support is provided all the way to the destination. In just the last 3 months, the Proliska charity has evacuated nearly 1,000 people from frontline communities in this way. Anastasia Nevirna, Vladislav Kamishin, Dnipropetrovshchina, TSN 1+1.
A nighttime collapse in a 5-story residential building in the Solomyanskyi district of the capital. The building, which was hit by a Shahed drone at the beginning of July, collapsed during the night. During the warm season, the damaged structure was not reinforced, even though residents repeatedly appealed to various authorities demanding that supports be installed. And so during the night, the building began to collapse again. What is happening at the site now, and who will be the one to repair the building that has been damaged for a second time? Natalia Nahorna will tell us more now.
This brick here is a piece of the wall that simply fell out of the building in the Solomyansky district of the capital in the middle of the night today. And I heard it, as they say, I thought it was an earthquake because it started shaking so much. It was shaking so hard, it was just terrifying. That's how it felt. And then there was a crash, and it fell. I immediately thought, since we still don't have a roof since July 4th and no one is doing anything.
It collapsed onto my apartment. The 3rd floor fell onto the 2nd. We asked them to put up supports. We submitted requests to 1551. There were just formal replies that they were processing something for repairs. No one ever responded to me about the supports.
I was here on July 4th of this year when a Shahed hit this building. It was truly just an absolute miracle that no one was tragically killed at that particular moment then. People managed to hide in the basement in time. Rescue workers from the State Emergency Service were working here and put up these kinds of supports. But that was just a temporary measure to clear the debris. Back then, the residents hoped that the building could be reinforced, but that still hasn't happened. This is the apartment that, according to the locals, could still have been saved. But now there's a hole leading outside, a collapsed section of wall, and a floor that's hanging over the 2nd story.
Last night, the entire floor unexpectedly collapsed, and everything then fell down to the 2nd floor below. It's still holding on to something a little, I don't know what, but this particular part right here, it could still potentially fall down.
For the apartment that collapsed today, the owners even managed to apply for e-recovery. They were allocated 140,000. Of course, that's not enough for repairs, especially considering that last night this apartment almost completely collapsed.
Right behind my wall, there's just one partition to the hole, and I don't know if it will hold, if it won't hold, or if it will just collapse into my apartment right away. There are 2 children in the house.
The residents of the building have repeatedly appealed to all government authorities, especially since there has been no gas here since July 4th. And winter is coming soon, the cold is coming, and they have no idea how they'll get through it in this building.
My entire wall is completely black. The wallpaper itself is also black, and indeed everything in this space is black. I don't know how we're going to go on.
We are waiting for official comments from the district authorities. Today at 4 o'clock, they plan to meet with local residents and explain to them what will be done next with this damaged building. Natalia Nahorna, Timofey Koshchi, TSN 1+1.
And later in the evening, representatives of the Kyiv City State Administration and the leadership of the Solomyansky district met with the residents of the building. Officials stated that the morning collapse occurred because the structure could not withstand the load, resulting in the destruction of the floor slab and part of the wall. In response to residents' questions about why no reinforcement or restoration work had been carried out for 3 months, the district had replied that there were no legal grounds to start repairs, as examinations were ongoing and project documentation was being prepared. At present, residents of the building have been informed that some of the apartments deemed unfit for living will be demolished and rebuilt, and the people will be temporarily relocated. They were promised reimbursement for the cost of renting alternative housing. The apartments that were damaged will be partially restored. As for the heating, they promise to repair it in the near future. However, the gas can only be reconnected after the roof has been restored. Roof repairs began today, and this work will last for at least a month. The Commission on Damages Caused by Russian Aggression will begin its work in 2027. It is also then that the first decisions regarding compensation for Ukrainians are expected. This was reported by the deputy head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Irina Mudra. According to her, the most difficult issue is the formation of a compensation fund that will ensure the payments. Since the Commission on Damages will be an administrative body, its decisions will not have the status of mandatory enforcement, as, for example, court rulings do. Therefore, it is important to immediately create a fund with reliable sources of financial support for compensation payments, the official explained. In particular, the money of the aggressor state should be used for this purpose. Kyiv hopes that at their next meeting in Luxembourg on October 10th, the economy ministers of EU countries will support the European Commission's proposal to provide Ukraine with a reparations loan of 140 billion euros, which will be secured precisely by the frozen Russian assets. First and foremost, this money is intended to be used for Ukraine's defense needs. The European Parliament is also calling for the removal of restrictions on its use. Today, for the second time, MEPs have adopted a resolution with such an appeal.
A significant portion of this reparations credit, a substantial percentage, should go specifically to defense projects. Regarding compensations, since decisions on compensations will not be made before 2027, Ukraine's position is that, for now, the amount of this reparations credit is rather insignificant. I am not ready to state the percentage at this time, but it is also necessary to create some financial cushion for the first decisions of the Compensation Commission.
The enemy has advanced on the front near the settlements of Vyimka, Novoselivka, Poltavka, and Sichneve. These are the latest data from the analysts at the DeepState portal. At the same time, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reports that since the beginning of the day, about 1,500 clashes have been recorded on the front. A third of them took place in the most difficult Pokrovsk direction. Drone operators from the 4th Tactical Special Forces Group of the SSO have released a video showing Russian infantry entering the eastern part of the first mine of the Pokrovska mine administration. But they were not allowed to gain a foothold, and the enemy assault troops were taken out by drones inside the building. To prevent the Russians from advancing specifically in the Pokrovsk sector, powerful measures are currently being employed. This was stated by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrsky. He says that above all, the defense forces there are trying to protect the roads and critical infrastructure. Also, according to Syrsky, the Dobropilia counter-offensive operation, which began back in August, is still ongoing. At this point, our army has managed to liberate more than 180 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory and clear almost 213 square kilometers of enemy sabotage and reconnaissance points. Deferral from mobilization for those liable for military service, even those who are wanted. But there is a catch. The Verkhovna Rada has allowed defense industry enterprises to grant a 45-day deferral from mobilization to people who have issues with their military registration, such as missing or improperly issued military documents, or if a citizen is not registered or even wanted by the authorities. Such employees are given a legal grace period of 45 days to resolve all discrepancies in their paperwork. As soon as the registration issues are resolved, the deferral will be extended, or it will be cancelled if the deficiencies are not addressed. By providing this preliminary deferral, the state is solving several problems at once. In particular, more highly qualified workers will remain at enterprises, and men who previously had paperwork issues will come out of the shadows and work legally, explained Member of Parliament Halina Yanchenko.
We are essentially providing this 45-day window to undergo the Military Medical Commission, to register in the reserve, and then, with all the proper documents, have the opportunity to get a job and receive a deferral at defense plants.
What advantages and disadvantages do you see in this update to the rules? Be sure to write what you think in the comments to this episode on YouTube. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The TSN episode continues, and there are still important topics ahead. A new branch of the military will appear in the armed forces of Ukraine, cyber forces. The bill to create it has been passed in the first reading. The main task of the newly established cyber forces is to conduct intelligence and special operations in the enemy's cyberspace. Specialists will be recruited into the cyber forces without mobilization. They won't be running around with rifles or sitting in trenches, but will even be able to work from home, says Oleksandr Fedienko, a member of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security. More than 40 countries in the world, including NATO members, already have their own cyber forces. Ukrainian units will cooperate with NATO countries to counter common threats in cyberspace.
Cyber defense and cyber forces are two completely different things. Cyber forces, I want to emphasize once again, are primarily troops that conduct reconnaissance and, if necessary, attack in cyber domains. This draft law, first and foremost, establishes the appropriate military hierarchy. I want to remind you, it finally systematizes various institutions.
Shooting down Russian drones over Europe. The European Parliament adopted a resolution calling on EU member states to respond more decisively to Russian provocations in the air, up to and including shooting down drones and aircraft that violate EU airspace. Nearly 500 deputies supported the document. It addresses the dangerous and escalatory actions of Moscow, which threaten the security of the continent. MEPs noted that Russian drones have repeatedly been detected near the borders of Poland, the Baltic states, and Romania, as well as near energy and transport infrastructure in Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. The European Parliament supported the creation of an EU drone wall. Ukraine's experience in combating drones is valuable for Europe. This is also mentioned by members of national parliaments, such as those from the United for Ukraine group, which includes delegates from 6 countries, including Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, Finland, and Sweden. They state that Ukraine's victory should become the strategy for all of Europe, and that Ukraine's membership in the EU and NATO will only strengthen European security.
But we know that if Ukraine truly becomes a full NATO member, the alliance can effectively avoid a devastating Russian attack, and the European Union will undoubtedly become much stronger, working together with powerful new defense tools, comprehensive security instruments, advanced drone walls, and various other crucial projects. We are learning from Ukraine's experience. This is a huge asset for us. These drones can be launched from ships of the Russian Shadow Fleet. They can be launched from neighboring villages by Russian agents or those working for Russia who would want to disrupt the operations of critical infrastructure at airports such as Munich Airport, for example. This exposes that we are absolutely unprepared to create a multi-layered air defense system in today's realities. Meanwhile, we also clearly see how Ukraine courageously survives daily under truly massive and relentless attacks that occur weekly, if not virtually every single day. Therefore, we urgently need to take decisive action immediately and significantly invest in our robust defense capabilities.
He tried to reconcile with Baku after nearly a year of conflict. Russian dictator Putin spoke with the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. They met in Dushanbe, which both are currently visiting. Relations between the countries worsened after the Russians shot down the Baku-Grozny flight in December last year. As a result of the crash, 38 people died. The plane was hit by Russian air defense, its GPS signal was blocked, and eventually it crashed over Kazakhstan. At first, Russia blatantly lied about the causes of the disaster and then delayed issuing an apology. Putin was also unable to officially state them, even though he was sitting next to Aliyev. He only said that Russia had already apologized. And of course, the Russian dictator blamed Ukraine itself for the disaster. Supposedly, 3 of our drones were in Russian airspace at the time of the crash, and the air defense forces were targeting them specifically. Putin's attempt to reconcile with Azerbaijan, a country that exports a significant amount of oil and fuel, is taking place against the backdrop of a fuel crisis in Russia itself, which arose after targeted strikes by Ukrainian drones on the oil infrastructure of the aggressive country. Ursula von der Leyen has remained in office. The European Parliament rejected the vote of no confidence against the President of the European Commission. Proposals for von der Leyen's resignation were put forward by 2 parties with opposing views: the political group The Left and the far-right group Patriots for Europe, founded by the controversial Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán. Both proposals were rejected by the deputies. This means that the current composition of the European Commission, led by the pro-Ukrainian Ursula von der Leyen, remains in office. This is already the 2nd attempt this year to pass a vote of no confidence against her. The previous attempt failed in July. At that time, the vote for the resignation of the President of the European Commission was initiated by the Romanian far right. The accusations were taken seriously, and an investigation will be conducted. The European Commission has promised to examine all the details amid media reports about Hungarian spies. For years, Budapest has been conducting intelligence activities in Brussels and has tried to recruit employees of European institutions. This is stated in a joint investigation by journalists from Hungary, Germany, and Belgium. According to their data, between 2015 and 2017, one of the Hungarian agents operated under diplomatic cover and, during that time, tried to recruit a representative of the European Commission, offering him money for information and rumors, but the person refused. In this way, Budapest wanted to fill the information gaps that had arisen due to its confrontation with the European Union. The spy, who was acting in Hungary's interests, ultimately failed, in part due to excessive pressure from the Hungarian authorities, as he was forced to act recklessly, and eventually he returned to his homeland. The media have identified the names of 2 more suspected Hungarian spies who also drew attention to themselves during that period. It was previously reported that Hungarian agents were also monitoring EU investigators who were investigating corruption linked to Prime Minister Orban's son-in-law. The first phase of the peace plan has been signed. The US president announced some hopeful news about Israel and Hamas. Donald Trump wrote on his social network that following negotiations in Egypt, the parties have agreed to begin implementing the first stage of the peace plan for resolving the situation in the Gaza Strip. According to the US president, this means the release of all hostages held by Hamas. The White House stated that this could happen as early as Monday. In return, Israel will withdraw its troops to a pre-agreed line, and today the Israeli government will approve the first phase of the peace plan. The mediators in these negotiations, namely the US, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, say that Israel and Hamas have agreed to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. 400 trucks will be allowed in each day. The UN is already planning to increase the volume of aid.